Miss Anu Aga, a great leader, turned around Thermax Limited during its difficult times. A true leader, Anu Aga, over 3 decades in industry, is a believer of high-performance culture and a socially responsible organization. Anu had set high levels of corporate governance of Thermax. She leaves a legacy of good code of conduct. After retiring from Thermax, she took to social work, and in 2010, she was awarded the Padma Shri for social work by Government of India. She is currently chairperson for Teach for India. She was nominated to Rajya Sabha in 2012 by President Pratibha Patil. Anu's humane leadership transformed not only Thermax but also many underprivileged school children. With her passion for social causes, she is keenly involved with NGOs Akansha and Teach for India. She writes extensively and is invited by many to speak on corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, role of women, education, and secularism. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Miss Anu Aga.
Friends, I request Dr. Y.K. Hamid, Mr. Akhilesh Rathi, President IMA, and all the IMA board members, and Conclave Chairman Dr. Himanshu Rai to present the citation and the IMA Lifetime Outstanding Achievement Award to Miss Anu Aga. I would read the names of the board members present. Please come over to the dais. Mr. Virendra Goyal, Dr. Himanshu Rai, Mr. Santosh Muchal, Mr. Akhilesh Rathi, Mr. Girish Matlani, Mr. Siddharth Sethi, Mr. Manoj Munshi, Mr. N. Mohan, Dr. Upinder Dhar, Shonali Paul, and Ms. Aryama Sanyal. May I request our beloved Thai Sumitraji Mahajan to join for this award presentation on the stage, please. Our beloved Thai ex-Lok Sabha Speaker, Sumitraji Mahajan, is also joining for award presentation ceremony.
President of IMA, Mr. Akhilesh Rathi, Honorary Secretary Ashwin Palshikar, all the jury members, especially my friend Yuku Hamid, dignitaries on the dais and off the stage, friends, and especially the students. I thank Indoor Management Association for the Lifetime Outstanding Achievement Award 2020. I want to congratulate IMA for completing 56 successful years and for being the fastest growing non-profit management association in India. I also want to acknowledge the very warm hospitality offered to me by several IMA members and students right from the time I entered your city. I'm delighted for the last 3 years, your city is declared as the cleanest city. I've been requested to speak about my life journey and also say a few words about my definition of success. Let me start with my childhood so that you get the context of what I'm trying to convey. I was born in a privileged Parsi family in Mumbai, and my father had his own business. Parsis tend to be over-westernized, so my father, who wanted me to be rooted in Indian culture, selected a school which was bilingual, Gujarati and English. My brothers and all my cousins went to English medium schools. My father was willing to experiment with his daughter, but not with his sons. Although my school was excellent, I felt deprived and discriminated, and the lack of fluency in English made me doubt my self-worth. Today, I realize that while English is needed for commercial success or for personal expression, it should never be linked to one's self-worth. My two brothers were groomed to take over the reins of the company that my father had established. Though I was better at studies than my two brothers, I was never encouraged to join the family business. In fact, I was subtly and not so subtly reminded that my aim should be to get married and raise children. I would now like to talk about the three major challenges I faced in my life and how I dealt with them. My late husband was a brilliant entrepreneur, and under his leadership, our company Thermax did very well. When he was in his late 40s, he had a massive heart attack, and a large part of his heart was damaged. We went to the UK for his bypass surgery, and on the second day, he had a stroke. In spite of his brilliance, in that state, he could not recognize me, he forgot to read and write, and his left hand was partially paralyzed. Dealing with this challenge taught me 4 important lessons that have guided my life since. Doctors had said that my husband would never fully recover. But with determination and grit, Rohinton relearned and wrote A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4 for months. With his partially paralyzed left hand, he asked the physiotherapy in London to teach him to tie his shoelace. She suggested that for a month, he practices tying a bow on his thigh. Rohinton was up that whole night practicing tying the bow, and the next morning he succeeded with his shoelace. Please, may I have some water? Within 2 years, he was back to his usual self. Thank you. He took CII delegations abroad and authored a book. The lesson I learned was never give up. Have faith in yourself, no matter what the experts say. As parents, we give great importance to education and degrees, believing nobody can take our knowledge away. Rohinton had studied at prestigious universities such as Cambridge and Harvard. Rohinton's stroke was a humbling experience and taught me that a small blood clot can wipe away all our knowledge and intelligence. So the second important lesson was our intelligence, our knowledge, and everything we know can be wiped out. Nothing in life is permanent. The third lesson was that from a young age, you must take care of our health. We cannot take it for granted. My husband was a workaholic. He smoked and loved food which was unhealthy. I used to make special efforts to cook healthy dishes. With his sense of humor, he would say, "Delicious, do cook it when I'm out of town." I'm not just talking about physical health, but emotional and spiritual health too. Most youngsters feel that this is not the time and all this should be taken care of when they are older or retire. But without investing in yourself, you could have a very successful career, but not a fulfilling life. Life will keep throwing challenges. Meditation has helped me to deal with life with equanimity and draw on my inner strength. Finally, the stroke taught me to change my definition of success. Success at work should not demand a disproportionate price whereby we end up neglecting our health and well-being and do not create time for meaningful, important relationships. My husband came from a middle-class background and wanted to prove to himself and make his parents proud by reaching the top of the corporate ladder. But the price he paid was very high. In my own life, I have realized that external recognition in the form of approval, awards, and rewards tickles my ego for a short while, but the joy is very short-lived. After we returned from the UK, well-wishers suggested I get involved with our company, Thermax, which was then privately owned. I worked for 5 years in the human resource department, and when my boss decided to leave, I was made the head of HR. Though by training I am a social worker, destiny took me to the corporate world. Our 2 children, Meher and Kurush, studied engineering in the UK and later both decided to join the business as trainees. Meher married a wonderful man named Feroz, and they were sent to England to turn around a small business unit which Thermax had acquired and was not doing well. My promise to my daughter Meher was that I would be with her when she had her first baby. 4 years later, when Meher was expecting her first child, I went to England to be with her. In those days, HR used to focus on soft human issues, and I had not bothered to learn about our business. I had decided that when I get back from the UK, I would come out of HR and get involved in hardcore business issues. 6 months after my grandson was born, I returned to India. My husband was delighted to have me back and had driven from Pune to Mumbai to receive me. But before he could come to the airport, he had a massive heart attack and passed away at the age of 60. As soon as I landed, instead of my husband being there to receive me, I was told he was no more. In 1995, a year before Rohinton passed away, our company Thermax had gone public. 2 days after his death, the board met and decided that I should be the executive chairperson of a listed company. I had not planned for this day. It was a very difficult period as I was missing my husband terribly and felt most inadequate to assume this responsibility. I kept devaluing myself by saying the only reason I was given this position was because the family owned majority of the shares. The second challenge I had to face at this stage involved a choice before me: either to feel helpless, wallow in self-pity, allowing my sense of inadequacy to grow, or to hold myself together and take charge of my life. Soon after I took over as chairperson, the Indian economy went through a downturn and our performance kept deteriorating. Thermax made a loss for the first time and our share price took a beating from rupees 420 to rupees 36. Newspapers speculated that I'm likely to sell the business and settle abroad. Little did they realize that I'm not a quitter and consider the business as the family legacy. The terrible results were a wake-up call to do something drastic. I convinced the board to hire a consulting company to help us turn around. There was great resistance from our senior executives to hire the consulting firm, and they argued we could not afford to pay their hefty fees. They also expected me to have faith that things would improve as soon as the economy picked up. My belief was that we could not survive without their help. I think men find it difficult to seek help. Perhaps it comes in the way of their macho image. With the help of the consultant, Thermax made radical changes. We exited from its non-core businesses, which were not profitable and consumed a lot of management time. For example, we were the first company to enter software business before Infosys and Wipro, but did not make it a success. In the businesses we decided to keep, we brought in operational efficiency, reconstitute the entire board, which meant requesting the old board members to step down, which is a very embarrassing thing. All the executives who had done well were invited to the board. So I had to go to each one of them and say, please step down. And I'm very delighted to say they all graciously stepped down and stayed with the company. Worked towards a robust performance culture, rekindling our tradition of innovation and customer focus. Mayor and Feroz had to decide to remain either executives or join the board. They were used to having both the roles, playing both the roles. At that time, they were very unhappy with this choice, but today they appreciate it. Those were tough times, but thanks to the help given by many people, committed teamwork of our employees, support from the family, and with destiny on our side, Thermax turned around in 2001. In 2004, I decided to retire. The board selected my daughter Meher, who has done her master's in chemical engineering from Imperial College, to be the chairperson. Not only because she's an engineer, but has a feel for finance and has imbibed the family values. Why did I decide to retire when the company was doing well and I was enjoying the media attention? Being from the HR background and having experienced the trauma of drop-dead succession, I wanted a smooth, well-planned succession. I wanted to change gears while I had the energy to work for the social sector. The last reason was my ego need. Did not want to undignify myself by occupying the chair while all around me wondered when this old woman would vacate the chair. I've seen many men hold on to their position till all around their younger generation is anxiously waiting, when will this Buddha get out? If you ask me what was the third and the most difficult challenge in my life, my response would be to learn to accept death and to come to terms with it. Like most people, I imagine that death is something that happens to others. I was paranoid about death, and whenever anything unpleasant was said, I would touch wood. In those days, before the Mumbai-Pune Express came up, my husband and I traveled by the old road, and if the word death was mentioned, I would make him stop the car, find a tree, and touch it. Today I'm aware that even if I carried an entire forest with me, I cannot change my destiny. My husband's death was extremely painful, but I found it most difficult when my son Kurush was killed in a car accident 14 months after my husband passed away. In fact, the pain I felt when my husband died receded into insignificance compared to how I felt when my son died. He was only 25 with his entire life ahead of him. For years, I had heard of the Buddhist meditation called Vipassana. Anyone in the audience who's done it, raise your hand. Wonderful. It is a meditation program for 10 days where you cannot talk, read, or write. My husband used to say he would love to see me quiet for so long. The deaths had created a deep void in my life, and I decided to attend the Vipassana program. I've attended 4 such programs. Since you cannot distract yourself, you're forced to turn inward and tap into your inner resource and strength. I have found that meditation on a daily basis has been most helpful for me. I realize God is not partial to any human being, and all of us sitting in this room will die. It is inevitable. What we do not know is when, where, and how we will die. It is unpredictable. The sun rises and sets each day, and we do not cry when the sun sets because we have accepted this as a natural process. Similarly, all of us are born and have to leave this earth, but since we have not accepted this inevitable process, we refer to death as a tragedy. For me, tragedy in life is the failure to get along with the living, investing in ourselves and in relationships that matter. Once we accept the fact that no living person can escape death, we value the time we have on this earth, and life becomes very meaningful. I also realize that the death of a dear one, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Suffering happens when you keep asking, why did this happen to me? Why has no answer and adds to our misery. When things go well, we assume that we are God's favorite and take our good luck for granted and never question why we have been showered with so many good things. But as soon as things go wrong, we keep wondering why things are not going the way we expect and why God has been so cruel to us, forgetting that every human being has her shares of ups and downs. Youngsters in this audience who have a glorious life stretched out in front of you might find my talk about death morbid. You may wonder why this old lady is harping on this unpleasant subject. It is because even at a young age, it is helpful to realize that loss, rejection, and failure are built into our lives, and at some stage, we have to face them. In fact, everything that happens in our lives, every so-called misfortune, every separation or loss, teaches us very profound learnings, provided we allow our lives to be our best teacher. As human beings, we have the ability to convert our struggle to grace or wallow in bitterness. The choice is ours. My late son was very keen that a part of our personal wealth be used for social causes. He had been abroad for 8 years and was uncomfortable with poverty. I wonder whether we who live in India, seeing suffering all around us, have become insensitive to the plight of others. After his death, I was searching for a credible NGO and came across Shaheen Mistry, who had started Akanksha. I was struck by the idealism and zeal of Shaheen and decided to support Akanksha and helped expand it to Pune. 11 years ago, Shaheen wanted me to help her start a new movement called Teach for India, and I readily agreed. I realized that for lasting happiness and a sense of well-being, we need to be less self-absorbed and reach out to deprived, denied, and discriminated against. Students in this audience may want to know more about Teach for India, and please look up our website, and I hope some of you will one day join the movement which will transform your lives. Over time, as a family, we have decided to give 30% of our Thermax dividends to social causes, and the largest chunk goes towards Teach for India. In the next couple of years, we want to raise it to 50%. Media celebrates people who have great wealth and are powerful as successful leaders. How the wealth is acquired is a non-issue. Youngsters lack role models to emulate. The youth present today have an opportunity to be value-based leaders who can be role models for the next generation. In the long run, it is in our own self-interest that we need to bridge the huge inequity gap. Today, through television, the poor see pictures of lavish spending. How long will it take them to rise against the haves? Can we expect "this is my karma and my faith" attitude to continue and the poor to take this disparity without agitating? From a distance, success seems all the glitter and glamour for which most people crave for. Let me repeat and assure you that without investing in yourself and without being at peace with yourself, you may have all the worldly goodies and yet be a miserable human being. I would urge you to give a thought not just to your career, but also finding your deeper meaning and wider purpose in life and how you can reach out to some worthy cause. We get obsessed with materialistic acquisitions. We need to be honest with ourselves and check if things are becoming more important than people. Are we forgetting a simple advice given by the wise? For lasting happiness, we need to love people and use things, and not use people and love things. My definition of success is to live an abundant life. Abundance can be defined as life rich in experiences, full, meaningful, significant, adventurous, live with a sense of well-being. Well-being comes from being at peace with oneself and in harmony with people who are meaningful to us. I would like to end with a story from Vipassana. Our young professor was going on a long voyage, and being a professor, had stacks of books with him. There was an old illiterate sailor, and he came up to the professor and said, "I'm illiterate. Will you teach me something every day?" Professor says, "Of course, come every day." So the first day, when the sailor comes, professor asks him, "Do you know what are the stars? What is this earth? What are the planets?" Never heard of all these things. He said, "You don't know, 25% of your life is over." The second day the professor comes and again he says, "Do you know about the fish, the oceans and everything, the oceanography?" He's never heard of oceanography. He says, 50% of your life is over. Third day he asks, "Do you know about the stars and the galaxies, meteorology?" "No." It's 75% of your life is over. The fourth day, the sailor comes running and says, Professor, do you know swimming?" He says, "No." Swimology? He says, "No." He says, "The ship is sinking and 100% of your life is over." So I urge you to learn the art of living before you learn any other logies. Thank you very much.
Yes, she needs a standing applause, standing ovation. And I can say, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going.